Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Infamous Universe Q&A. In this series, I take your questions about Infamous and I answer them, whether it's big, small, simple, or complicated. Today's question comes from Jacob Lathers and he asks, if an Infamous TV series was created, how would you like it to be made? With Cole or someone new? And what place would you like it to be set in? I'm very excited to answer this one today because I've actually had two ideas for an Infamous TV series for quite some time now. I've never made videos about them because, obviously, I've never had enough time, like always. But anyway, my first idea is for a live-action TV series that takes place inside Curtain K. It shows off what life is like for the Conduit prisoners, and just is kind of like a Conduit prison drama TV show. Basically, Orange is the New Black, except it's in the Infamous universe inside Curtain K. I feel like live action would be better for this show because it doesn't require a lot of special effects. You just need some green screens, maybe a few set pieces, some actors, and some costumes, and of course, props. Now don't get me wrong, all of that stuff is expensive, but it's a lot less expensive than having to render and produce insane power special effects. You would have a couple of scenes where you're in the little training arena and conduits are doing the training, and then there could be another scene where a conduit acts out and then a D.U.P guard subdues him in concrete, but the special effects wouldn't be too crazily overdone, which would keep the show in budget. Now my second idea is for a TV show just called Conduits, and it's about a special task force that Augustine put together comprised only of prime conduits. So if you think about the ending of First Light, when you get to the D.U.P arena, and if you pre-order the game you got the D.U.P fetch outfit, there was a little message that said, consider what it would have been like if Fetch had joined Augustine and went to work for the D.U.P. It was like a little what-if scenario at the end of the game. And I got to thinking, what if that was a TV show? Because we know that Celia was Augustine's little pet project. She was her secret conduit agent that would go out and, do all that stuff in Paper Trail that I already discussed in my next chapter video. So what if there was a group of conduits, a task force that she assembled full of people like Celia and Fetch, and they went on these secret missions that the regular D.U.P army wasn't capable of doing? I just think that would be a really cool idea, and even though live action would be awesome, I think animation would do much better for this series because the cost of having to find actors and actresses who look like the characters and sound like the characters and want to play the characters is hard enough, let alone having to build set pieces, create all of the special effects. It would just be too crazy to do live action with. So animation would be better for the Conduits TV series. However, I do think that the Curtain K prison TV show should be live action. These next two questions I'm going to basically combine into one question because they both kind of ask the same thing. The Unfamous asks, what do you think would be a good power for a character in the Infamous universe? Carter Hewwagon, sorry if I butchered your name there. Do you think Infamous can have an ongoing comic book series? And they both asked, if you were a conduit, which power would you like to have? Okay, so as far as an ongoing comic book series goes, I don't think a continual comic book series would be a good thing for Infamous because then that would require them to split up the plots. You could have something going on where the games follow one storyline and the comic books follow a different set of characters, kind of like if the game were to follow Delsin and the comic was to follow Eugene or something along those lines. You could make it work, but I don't think it would be very popular among fans because, as far as I'm aware, most people who play video games don't like having to read comics to fill in gaps in the story or to get the whole story, especially if there was a crossover between the comic book and the game. People would be left out because they didn't have enough money to buy the comics, or they didn't have enough money to buy the game, or maybe somebody didn't have a comic shop near them, or just complications all over the place. So as much as I would like to have a comic book series for Infamous, I don't think it would really work out in the long run. Which power do I think would be good for a character in Infamous? Well, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of really good powers, and I want to save a majority of my power ideas for a sequel video because I've had a lot of people ask me, what powers do you want to see? Honestly, the one that's on my mind right now is paint. I think paint would be really cool because if it worked like a paintball gun and you could shoot a fully automatic stream of highly condensed, high velocity paintballs at somebody, that shit hurts really bad. And I think using that as a power would be freaking awesome, because seeing all the different colors just splatter all over somebody's armor or somebody's face would be the coolest thing. I don't know how the karma bomb would work. I don't know how the grenades or anything like that would work. I mean, maybe for the grenades you could throw a huge ball of paint and then it would explode and it would kind of bubble up like lava. I don't know. I'm just spitting ideas out of my head right now, but paint sounds like a really neat idea. And if I was a conduit, what power would I want to have? Well, honestly, I think the power of mind manipulation sounds really awesome. I could convince people of things that they weren't sure of. I could, if I was a good guy, I could give dying people hallucinations of their best wishes before they passed away. If I was evil, I could give people hallucinations of their worst nightmares. I could just do so many things. If it was in a war zone, you could convince your enemies to lie down their weapons and give up. Like, the possibilities for mind manipulation are pretty much endless. And I think that would be a really, really, really awesome power. And this last comment isn't really a question, but I wanted to showcase it because this guy has a great idea. Travis Hopped, again, I'm sorry if I'm completely butchering these names. He says, much like Numeray had its Pyre Night, which mirrored the status of New Orleans as the most haunted city in America, Second Son's Festival of Blood style DLC could be focused on Native American ghosts and horror stories such as the Skinwalker, a creature with the ability to disguise or change itself into any other creature. Yes, horde battles with zombies would be fun, but I'd much rather play as a conduit. This idea is brilliant. I love it. Even though I still like my zombies idea, I think this would be much better suited for Second Son's theme. Think about how the story would go. You could play at the Akomish Reserve. It would start out with Reggie taking a bunch of kids on a school camping field trip. You'd be out in the middle of the woods at the Akomish Reserve. It'd be late at night. Reggie would have a campfire and he'd start telling these kids ghost stories. And then you could play as Delsin through the story, much like you played through Zeke's story in Festival of Blood. And at the end of the game, Delsin could jump out and scare all the kids. It would just be fucking great. I love this idea. Now, I looked up a picture of this thing on Google, and it looks like something straight out of goddamn Bloodborne. As a matter of fact, this creature inspired the design of the Cleric Beast from Bloodborne, so it wouldn't be the first time a creature like this was implemented into video games. Here's another image that I think is more inFAMOUS appropriate. I can just totally see a part of the game when you're running through the forest chasing this thing, and it turns around and looks at you with those dead bright eyes and that completely black face. God, I just fucking love this idea. And I believe that puts a wrap on this episode of the inFAMOUS Q&A. Remember to leave a like, it helps me out a bunch. Subscribe if you like this content and want to see more. Don't forget to leave your comments for the next episode, and I'll see you all later.